Welcome back, horror fans, to the Week in Horror. Today we'll be going through May 31st through June 6th. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Alex, and with me as always is JL and Eugene.
How's it going?
What's up, everybody?
And this week we are incredibly lucky to announce that we have a super special guest with us tonight. We are so grateful she was able to take some time out of her crazy schedule to join us with this episode. You know her from Feast 2, Sloppy Seconds, Ghost Note, and over 30 more credits. The insanely talented Cassie Shea Watson.
Hey guys, it's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, this has been so awesome. We are able to swing this. Cassie was able to join us for this episode. Cassie, thank you so much for joining us at the very last minute. Things have been crazy with the stuff going on outside, and it's just been nuts. So, and to our listeners, be sure to check out our After Dark session with Cassie as we discussed her incredible career and her upcoming projects. All right, boys, let's get to the horror movies, right? That's what we're here for.
Yeah, let's go.
Oh, is that what
Eugene,
we're doing?
what do we have first? What's the first on the docket today?
Oh, this may be like the quickest we've ever gone into a movie on this podcast. I just want to note that like, right off the bat.
We just gotta jump right in it.
Everybody's excited. Yeah.
They're like, man, Norm, I gotta scroll through like 15 minutes just to get to the first movie. so right off the bat. So it was released June 1st, 1979, and it is called The Brood, right?
And I fucking love Cronenberg.
Oh yeah, directed by the great David Cronenberg, right? And it stars Oliver Reed, Samantha Edgar, and Art Hindle.
Nailed it.
Yes, Yes, I'm practicing. I'm like rehearsing. So Cassie, we have this inside joke because I'm horrible at pronouncing names, and it's something I have to work on. And so like I butchered so many names, and then we did Train to Busan, which is a Korean film, and I nailed all the names perfectly.
So you just need to stick to the Korean films, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so now I have all the Korean films.
And here's Eugene introducing all of our K-horror.
Not sure how he does it, but he killed it.
I don't know how some switch that happened on in the brain. But basically, in a nutshell, this movie is about a mad doctor that tries a psychoplasmic therapy on a raging woman and soon-to-be mother, and disgusting body stuff happens. She's like, look at this, and like opens a dress up. Yeah.
Oh, the eating scene was just.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's David Cronenberg.
Yeah. God, the scene where at the end where she is birthing. I almost lost it. I was like, nope. I mean, I like horror, but I can't even see my own blood, so unless it's fake, you know.
And this is so wild because this was Cronenberg. This was Cronenberg kind of ramping up to some of his bigger stuff, like Rabid and The Fly. These are things that would come later. So this wasn't what him at like his grossest.
No, but it definitely was a point where he was low in his life, which everything afterwards that came out of it was so... That's the thing. I was reading an article on him, and somebody said something along the lines of, you might not always understand Cronenberg's movies, but you'll understand where they came from. Because a lot of his movies portray like where he's at in his life, things that are happening. In this movie, he actually happened to be going through a divorce. And so you can really see in the film, Frank, the main character, has custody, and the mom feels like everything's being taken from her, but it was a reverse situation in real life with Cronenberg. His wife was actually taking their daughter, so you could see a lot of his emotion of what he was going through in this movie. Yeah. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he is definitely. You get some directors that just kind of keep their life separate, like Steven Spielberg. He can be going through a messy divorce and release the happiest movie ever.
I feel like there was a lot of cocaine involved.
Yeah, I definitely, because I had read that he had modeled the husband and the wife after he and his ex-wife.
Yeah.
And at the time, they were going through a brutal custody dispute over their child. And I guess many of us will have spoken in the past, especially actors. And I know Cassie can relate to this. Is that acting is not only the storytelling and the performance aspect, but it is also oftentimes cathartic, and that we can work out many things and we can work out a lot of things personally, and we can bring that into a performance if the script or the character warrants it.
Yeah.
And I guess just this was his way of working through that kind of that trauma, because it doesn't matter what it is. Divorce is messy, it's ugly, no one ever wants to go through it, and I think he kind of took some pot shots, at his wife. Obviously, you can see that he was very, very angry.
Just a little, just.
As a victim of divorce, I feel like he did very well at holding back this movie, because he could have taken it to a whole different level. Trust me.
Now,
I've had to go through the whole
one
thing.
thing I'm curious about, Cassie. This was your first time watching this movie, right?
Right. Yeah. Yes.
I gotta take from your perspective as a first timer, and I don't know how much Cronenberg you're familiar with. He's did movies like Videodrome and The Fly and Rabbit. Women play a particular type of role, and they're never weak. I've never seen Cronenberg create a weak female character, but his actresses are always given such. I don't want to just throw it away and just say they're given such meaty performances to go into or such depth, but they really, really give. He gives his actresses the opportunity to really swing for the fences.
Right. That's one thing that there's as an actress, we're given these roles a lot of times that that don't delve into this kind of this mentality, and I think that he made the women characters were super strong, but they had this also, putting them in situations where it's like, I mean, she was having to, have all these little freak children for this, and it was like, there was something about it that's like almost degrading, but then she's strong too, and it's like you don't know how to, like, I didn't know how to feel about it sometimes, and I don't know much Cronenberg, so I don't know like what he's done, what he did after that, but it is very like, I didn't know how to feel, as the little kids like cleaving the grandmother. It's like you're like, it's like
I was not expecting this.
I know.
That whole scene was so like influential.
Yeah, I'm like, what
this boozed up grandma.
Yeah, and all these the kid thing is what freaked me out. Now, you put kids in any kind of horror film and you give them a cleaver or something to kill somebody with, and it just becomes a whole nother level of, okay, what the hell's going on here? So I think because I teach kids, and it was like, I was like, okay, this makes me look at my students very, very differently.
I tell you, I never looked at little kids after I watched the original Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
Because oh god, his name escapes me. His name's right there on the tip of my tongue. But the little kid who played Gage, just you can see obviously a phenomenal Mika was his name. Mika Hughes, and just a phenomenal talent there. But yeah, there is that kind of that essence of innocence, of twisted innocence. They don't because they're like forces of nature. You can't control them because of how they're created and put into the world. Mm-hmm. And Cronenberg had that way of basically of showcasing both the weakness of a character and the strength of a character at the same time, making it, I would say he always exemplify, or it was sorry, I'm losing my words here. He was always exemplary at showcasing the humanity of his characters, no matter what kind of supernatural craziness was going on.
Right. Yeah.
And that always attracted me to his work. Just as most important, like in Cronenberg's in his remake of The Fly. You got Seth Brundle, and then you have Gina Davis. Gina Davis, one of the strongest female actors out there, just legendary. and what she brought to the role as being kind of like his counterpart, and we get to see the transformation through her eyes as much as we get to experience it through Jeff Goldblum's Seth Brundle. And I loved how he doesn't pull from one to give the other. He understands that the dynamic is both of male and female relationships.
Right. Correct.
And that kind of carried, I mean, it's not just that, but also his depiction of mental illness in this. And, okay, I'm going to get a little personal here because mental illness does run in my family. I've had two family members who were diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I've seen it firsthand, and had a bad relationship a long time ago that also, was not with a very healthy young lady. But, so there were moments in the film that really, really kind of called out in Samantha Eggar's performance that were just like hallmarks. It was kind of like, a little too real at times. And there's a terror to depicting mental illness, especially when done extraordinarily well.
Yeah.
It requires a specific kind of talent to do. And the shit is just haunting to me. Which made The Brood all the more powerful because we have fantastic humanity and this really, really crazy horror with this psycho fucking doctor, and then this underlying kind of rage situation, or this mental illness that the wife is dealing with, and just made it all the more just almost too real for me.
Yeah, because with mental illness, it's hard because you can't reason with that. Because a lot of times people with mental illnesses, even when they're going through, say, an episode of depression, a manic moment, or anything like that, a lot of times people are aware of what is happening, but they can't control it.
Oh, thank you. Say it louder for the people in the back.
You can't control it.
Yeah.
You know what's happening.
You do.
That's the most important thing to ever think about when dealing with anybody with any sort of mental illness is they know they are cognitive. They know what's going on most of the time. Now, like complete psychosis is a different story, but
other than that, people they do. They know what's going on. You can't reason with it. You can't. It's just the way the brain is. It's still a subject that we're still learning about. And when you deal with mental illness in a film, it's something that a lot of people know somebody who is diagnosed with mental illness, or maybe diagnosed or think they may have a mental illness, or we've seen it before, we've seen the effects before on it, and it can hit us on a personal level.
Yeah.
Especially
one that really jarred me was the remake of Maniac with Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood.
Yeah.
Because I mean, as much as that was a slasher film, they put a shit ton of emphasis on his mental illness and showcased it in a way that was a disturbing film. I've stomached a lot of horror in my day, and that one was just that was a gut punch. But because seeing how far it can go, and that being kind of the extreme of bringing this subject into horror films, and we, if done correctly, it can be absolutely terrifying. I both appreciated and was, disturbed by it, but I appreciated the humanity that Cronenberg brought to it in this particular film. It didn't define Samantha's character, which I think is important to remember, and he recognized, and Cronenberg recognizes. The character's not defined by the illness. The illness is an aspect of the character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is why we got such good moments from Samantha. She understands what's going on. She, this is a part of her, but it's not her whole makeup. And few directors, I think, are able to capture this very, very difficult subject in such a way. I think it just speaks to Cronenberg's genius.
And that is an excellent point that you make. Is that, yes, it is a important aspect of the character, and it may influence the actions of a character, but they should not be defined by that. And that's something which is people out there who may be dealing with mental illness or know somebody who has mental illness. Like, yes, it is a part of them, and it may influence them, but it is not completely who they are as a person. That's important.
Now,
And then we'll throw some body horror in there.
Yeah.
Sorry, go
No,
ahead, Cassie.
I like how the mental illness is physically has a physical manifestation, and in that you because a lot of times with mental illness you don't see it on the outside, and in this movie it's like that mental illness is like ushered to the outside of these characters, and you can see it's growing on them there. The way they look and the way, I mean, just her. I mean, I just keep going back to that visual at when she at the end when she eats her own insides. It's like,
spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
Sometimes shit happens.
Yeah, it's just like, oh geez, you're like, this is. If you want to see mental illness, if you want to see it on the outside, can you imagine what these people are actually going through? Just watching this film, I feel crazy. Not even crazy. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use that word. I feel like I'm lost in an illness itself, and you can't break out of it just watching the film. So yeah, it's totally out there, and I love that.
It's intense.
It is really intense, and you have the depiction of mental illness, and coupled with David Cronenberg's body horror style. Yeah. He loves his practical effects, and he'll show you things you never thought the human body could do. I'll tell you that.
more or less not supposed to do.
Videodrome still fucking haunts me, man. Just that one was just the VHS and or the tape and the body, the torso vagina. I don't fucking know what the hell he was doing. That one still haunts me to this day. I still
think about scenes from that movie from when you made me watch it earlier in the podcast, for sure.
It's only taken a year of therapy. That's it.
I said the word VHS today, and I immediately thought of that movie, and I was like, oh, damn it.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting. Cassie brings up the kind of personification, the physical personification of the mental illness, and it harkens back to our last episode when we talked about the Babadook.
Oh yeah.
Yes. See, I was going to bring that up. I didn't know.
Yeah, the Babadook is the physical manifestation of grief and denial, and I like that. I think that's a really, really special facet of horror films, is personifying the abstract, just giving it form. Now, and sometimes you can deal with it in that manner because you have something physical there to deal with. And I can see that, it's one of the reasons why we love horror films so much is because at times they, while they're entertaining and we laugh and we like seeing, people split in half and shit, but at times they are cathartic in that way. There is an purging of sorts that takes place with special films.
Right.
That's definitely true. You can bring light something that is not like an after school special or a Lifetime.
You leave HGTV out of this.
But this is actually something that I like to ask the audience. We talk about Cronenberg doing a lot of body horror. What is your favorite body horror movie? Is it The Brood or The Fly or Videodrome? And there's a bunch of others that are out there. So definitely comment, shoot us an email, let us know. What is your favorite body horror?
weekinhorror@gmail.com.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And cut.
And credits.
Done. That's it. Podcast over. But we're actually we're gonna shift over to a very fun movie and one of my favorite movies growing up. But Alex, go ahead and take it away.
All right, before we get into it, I just wanted to say I was thinking about this just a second ago because somebody said doctor earlier. I think all the movies that we talk about today have doctors in them. Am I wrong? There's a doctor somebody in every movie.
I think it might, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think so.
This week is all about... Anyways, so we're going to go back to 1982 and cover a movie that I thought we were covering on a previous podcast, and... That was a whole thing.
Yes, I tried. Okay,
we did the remake of this movie.
Cassie, I tricked him into watching the remake.
I'm sorry. That's a bummer.
It was like Poltergeist. It was like that meme where the guy's like Poltergeist. 2000. It was 2015.
But as Jail has already spoiled, we're going to be talking about Poltergeist, June 4th, 1982. That was... God, that was a long time ago. Where's it going?
I was
wasn't
two.
born. This is great. Makes me full.
Yes,
I was 2.
Once again, Jail is the oldest on the show.
Wow. Anyways, this movie, written by Steven Spielberg, starring... I'm going to start out with Heather O'Rourke as Carol, because she's definitely the star of the show. And then you've got Craig T. Nelson, Jo Beth Williams, Beatrice Straight as the doctor I was talking about, Dominique Dunn, Oliver Robbins, a whole bunch of super top-end cast here. This movie takes place in a suburb.
Don't forget. Zelda Rubinstein.
Oh, yes, Zelda Rubinstein. And I'm sorry, directed by Tobe Hooper. I almost fucked that up.
This house is clean.
Gotta love her. Yeah, Zelda Rubinstein. Did
I fuck it up? Is it clean or clear?
I thought it was clean.
I think it's clean.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just watched this.
Someone's going to kick me in my head. I'm going to get a bad email if I got that line wrong.
The hate mail.
Which is okay. Coming. You can send us bad emails,
yeah, right?
too.
Send your hate mail, too.
As we were discussing earlier, it's the exposure.
Yeah, right?
But anyways,
I think you should say as many wrong things as you can, see if everybody can pick them up. But that's a true horror challenge.
Oh, he does get called out sometimes. It does happen, but...
Oh, I got called out bad once. It was I was supposed to we do a thing called the Daily Splatter, and every single day to our social media feeds, we do one movie. We talk about it, where I put up a post about a movie that released that day in horror history, and we put up a little kind of blurb, something that people might not know about the movie. So every day comes a new movie, and I was supposed to do The Legend of El Charro, which is this kind of B horror film with Danny Trejo in it, and I got everything right, but the picture I chose was from Hatchet 2. But I mean, neither one of them are well-known films, and I accidentally grabbed the wrong picture from my library, and I put it up, and sure as shit, within 5 minutes, someone was like, dude, that picture's from Hatchet 2.
That's from...
I was like, shit!
Everything I've worked for is gone.
We've lost all credibility.
My credibility is done.
So even though they may not like or retweet or comment on our deals, they are watching them. How are they
much
fucking
like in
up
a
now?
horror movie?
Awesome.
All right, are we gonna hit this one now?
We are gonna hit this one now. Go.
All right. Quiet suburb, California. Let me set the scene for you. 1982. There is a little girl who starts to experience paranormal phenomena and then is abducted by ghosts. Poltergeist, I guess, would probably be the way to go with that one. And the movie is her family trying to get her back, essentially, with increasing supernatural shit happening around them at all time that it gets increasingly grotesque and is terrifying for a 9-year-old boy to watch on TV while his parents are out in homes. And this movie was absolutely one of the most influential horror movies in my entire life. I will never forget that movie, like, start to finish. I could, like, scene by scene, just because it was so terrifying as a kid to watch. But I love watching it now because it always brings back that nostalgic horror. Which is cool.
And it kind of dates you when you know what static is on TV too. That's a big thing. Because I remember when I saw that, and then static on TV, and it freaked me out every time. After I saw that movie when I was younger, I would never leave a TV on. So
Oh, you still don't look under your bed for clowns? Because I do.
No, I look under my bed. Yeah, for everything now.
Seriously, when a tree scratches a window, I'm like, nope.
No.
No.
I know it's just a tree from the wind.
we know that every single person on this podcast, and even behind the scenes of this podcast, we all did at one point or another. We saw this movie, and then when we saw the TV with the static on it, we all touched the screen. We know we did.
I remember the smell of the static on those TVs. After you run your hand across it, and it goes.
Oh yeah.
Such a fantastic. I
went to a Goodwill and
Go
I
ahead.
saw a clown that looked just like the clown off that, and I bought. This was 5 years ago,
Fuck that.
and I bought it just because of that. And now it sits in a container,
way.
but if it ever ends up somewhere, I'm like, I know this is gonna crawl out of the container at some point. I'm just waiting for it.
You have like a visual cue though. At least you know it's coming.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now it's sitting in the chair. I need to get
Yeah,
the fuck
yeah.
out.
If it's sitting in the chair, it's like I'm not gonna cover it with a T-shirt or not. It's like seriously.
So, Jack,
I learned my lesson. I
I
saw
want to see
Poltergeist.
it.
I know this one. I'm gone. We are built on a fucking Indian burial ground,
Yeah,
and
right.
I'm out.
Oh, it's so wild. There's so many things about this movie. I mean, there's a tremendous amount that we could talk about. I mean, we could probably spend the rest of the podcast talking specifically about this one. Predominantly, I wanted to focus a bit on the difficulties in getting this film made because those familiar with Tobe Hooper, director of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was not originally tagged to direct this film. Because Steven Spielberg was the mind behind it, and as interviews with Jo Beth Williams, she stated this film was directed by Steven Spielberg, but it was a massive hurdle overcoming studio politics at the time. Because if I remember, Eugene was telling me that at the time, directors could only direct one film a year.
Yeah.
For studios.
Yeah, so being the director, part of the Directors Guild, which houses like all the Hollywood directors, you're kind of a member whether you want to or not.
Join us.
They have a policy where you can only release one film a year. It's been that way for a long period of time. And so Steven Spielberg was actually finishing up on E.T. and this movie was already kind of green light, ready to go and stuff like that. But because of the whole issue with the Directors Guild, he could not direct Poltergeist. He couldn't. And so he went with E.T., but with Poltergeist being his basically his other passion project. So he basically called up Tobe Hooper and was like, listen, okay, I respect you, I like you. I want you to direct this film, but I'm really going to direct it, and you're kind of going to be like the go-between kind of thing. And Tobe Hooper, Steven Spielberg just called and he was like, hey, do you want to direct my movie and kind of just basically repeat what I say? He's like, okay, sure, what? Fine, whatever. It's going to be a slam dunk.
Tobe Hooper, a.k.a. Steven Spielberg.
The two of them, I know, collaborated together in putting this together because originally, I think Spielberg had envisioned this film being a kind of dark horror sequel to Close Encounters. Mm-hmm. And he really was into the sci-fi elements on that, but Hooper was kind of like, I don't really dig the sci-fi on it. What about a ghost story? What if we turned it in that direction? So instead of an abduction by aliens, it turned into spirits attacking the house. And I know that the ghost elements and the burial ground, the Indian burial ground where the spirits come from, were all Hooper's ideas.
Awesome.
And he brought those to the table. And of course, in classic Hollywood fashion, we're gonna use real human bodies in the infamous pool scene. So actual corpses. So yes, when Jo Beth Williams is swimming in that muddy, unfinished pool area, those are actual corpses.
They're real
that are
life
in
corpses.
the water with her.
Yeah, they're real corpses because corpses were cheaper to get than to actually make fake corpses.
Wow.
It was so wild because you're looking at it, you're like, those don't look real. Oh my god, they are real. And the fact that one got so close to her face,
Oh my god.
like, I'm a rotting body. Ugh.
That wasn't acting. She just accidentally fell in. The cameras just had to be rolling. Yeah.
So it was such a good fucking film. And I mean, what was it? Chicago Film Critics Association ranked it as the 20th scary film ever made. And as Cassie was mentioning, that clown doll attack scene was like, I think it was like number 80 on Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments.
88th, I think. That's what I read. No, that was Bruins.
It's so
Never mind. 80th, yeah.
But yeah, just with the clown under the clown is in the chair, then not in the chair, and it's like nope.
Nope. I'm out. But I mean, when you get Steven Spielberg in his prime, you get Toby Hooper in his prime, and they came together so well. Because we've talked about this movie several times. And I think when we're talking about the remake, one of the things that's actually nice about this movie is you have the united family front. Like, this is a happy family that loves each other. And it didn't need some kind of, where the husband has this affair and the kid is like doing drugs and all this other kind of stuff to get these sideline interesting stuff. It was like, no, this was actually a legit happy family that loved each other and cared for each other. And they all come across as real characters. Like, that's just a real dad, a real mom, and siblings. And they just happen to have this whole incident going on in the house. And I think because the movie's scary, but at the same time, it's fun. But not as a fun B-horror movie or a fun comedy movie, but it's a fun movie kind of like how more like Indiana Jones is kind of fun. It's scary and fun at the same time.
I think that was the importance of it. Something that we talked about when we talked about the remake, what was lost. One of the things that made this thing great was the chemistry between the actors, the fact that we had a functioning family that loved each other, that supported each other. Craig T. Nelson, Coach, Coach was amazing. I loved him in that show. And then, of course, Jo Beth Williams, just classic mom. And little Heather O'Rourke. I mean, what can we say? Just selling it as Carol Ann. And then the sister and the brother, Robbie, and it's just every single one of them. I was invested, just like any Spielberg movie. The characters that he creates, you invest into. You want to see them succeed. You're with them for the ride. Even though you may even ask the same questions as them. But I love how he does that. They're not characters that you could see yourself in. He doesn't write characters that are pants where you can just slip into the role. You can say, I can see myself in that role. It's like, no, like you see this happening to you would want the Freelings to be your next door neighbors.
Yeah.
And I love the connection that they're able to bring to this film. And of course, you added the supporting characters with Zelda Rubinstein and the paranormal investigation team, the meshing of science and the supernatural. Just the blending of it was so phenomenal. And of course, the effects, the practical effects were just out of this world.
They're just amazing. So they use great camera trickery of when the mom's running through the hallway. We get it in film terms. We call it the vertigo shot.
Yes.
From Hitchcock's Vertigo. Hitchcock's Vertigo, where you have the camera that is moving in while zooming out simultaneously. So you get that elongated effect of it. So she's like running down the hallway, but the hallway's getting longer. I mean, so you get that's all done in camera too, with amazing puppetry. And the thing about it is, we talk about with the family, because they're so lovable, you care about them more. Mm-hmm. If you had this real dysfunctional family and bickered and had all this other kind of stuff, you would be like, well, they're a protagonist, I kind of root for them, but if they get killed, whatever. Versus like, no, Carol Ann, she's so adorable. I don't want her. You have to go and rescue her because she's so adorable. I love her. Like, it invests you more into them.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of horror movies are missing too, is that you're not invested in the characters. Like you get there, they die, it's cool, it's blood and guts. But this one had a deeper connection to, you like the family, you like the characters, you're not waiting for them to die. And so by the end of it, you're like, okay, like you said, it's not a creepy kid. It's like, this kid is actually cute and you want her to be okay, So yeah, I totally agree.
Now, from a behind-the-scenes perspective, Cassie, and I know you're familiar with this, developing those bonds behind the camera is wildly important, especially when you need you need the meshing of that family unit, even if they're just friends or if they're if they are actually playing a family on screen, but you even behind the scenes is where you build
Right, exactly. And like I did a horror movie once where it was more of a thriller, but in the when we were shooting it, there was a scene where the candles blow out, like a ghost blows the candles out. And when they did it, they used canned air to blow the candles out, and it caught fire. And the little girl that was playing my daughter, her hair caught fire. And it was, and I almost, because we had been working for half a month already on this film. And so my connection with this little girl, she was one of my students prior to that even. So I had that kind of relationship, but just that 6 months, I mean, that 3 weeks we had been working on the film, like the bond that I had with the little girl, she was like my child. So when that happened, the guy who was, he literally thought I was going to kill him. Like I jumped up, I put her hair out with my arms. Like I didn't care if I got burned. So it's that kind of connection that you get by working. That's why I think it's so important to do films like if your child gets hurt or what, films is so important to do scenes like that closer to the end, because like you said, it's important to build that bond in with those characters when you have the chance to, because by that point in the film, like I would have, I almost stalked him. Like I was like, seriously? It's like, this is my kid. And like, wow. I wanted them to fire him, because it's like, that's irresponsible. It's like, did you not read the back of the can when it says it's flammable? Did you not think about this? So
at least give it a trial run without a child
sitting in front of the, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, as much as I loved that person and it was just a mistake, but in that moment, I didn't care. In that moment, I would have caught myself on fire rather than her hair catch on fire and possibly damage her, you know? But it's those bonds that you create, I think, that make a movie good, you know, that make a movie, that make us on the outside connect to those characters. And it's important, I think, if you're going to really get people to be drawn into your characters, to really create that connection and those relationships. Most horror movies don't do it, but most people don't watch horror movies for that. I think that's what made this one special, though, is that psychologically you're just, it's got all the horror, it's got so much of it is there, and then you're connected with the characters on top of it, and it just makes it makes it different. It stands out.
Absolutely, it definitely comes through. It plays through.
You've got so much more to lose when you've got this, like, you know, strong, good family that's being terrorized, and then you root for them, and that's amazing. And then on top of that, they took this movie on the horror side of things and made so many everyday things just absolutely terrifying. We were talking about it earlier. There was a couple of scenes that you guys mentioned, but you know, when I hear like a chair get pushed out from like a table across tile, like I immediately go back to the kitchen scene in there where the chairs are moving around. And it's like just the little things every single day that you come across. It's influenced my life for decades. And so they've got...
Can we say yes? You just mentioned it. Can we say how excellent was that cutaway when she's in the kitchen and the camera moves with her and then moves back and the chairs are all stacked again?
Over and stacked.
I mean,
shit.
From a filmmaking perspective, that's pretty goddamn brilliant.
Because, you know, and then you look at the Poltergeist at the end of it, by the time you're done with it, like all these things, like you can tell this thing's clearly intelligent. And, you know, with like the stacking of the chairs and getting into people's heads and stuff, there's just so much to this that you run into every day that I still, like, we've been talking about it right now. You've got the clown. You said you bought that, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
You know, that it stuck with you so long that you still were influenced to make that purchase. Or like I said, you know, with looking under the bed, because it's like that's the first thing I think of. Sometimes I'll hear something under the bed, I look under there to check to see if the cats are hiding under there. But as I'm on my way down, you know, like, what if that noise was that clown from Poltergeist? And then by that time it's already too late, and it's like, I don't know what I would do in that situation. It's terrifying.
I'll tell you,
I'm almost 30 years old.
As a child, it was that fucking... It was the one that got me. The clown was scary. The tree was fucking scary. The scene in the bathroom, that was
fucking
scary.
face falling off one?
Exactly.
Oh my god, I have nightmares about that.
The one that haunted me the most, and this is only because when I was growing up, the house that I lived in, I had it was the closet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had a very similar closet.
Oh.
with the two sliding doors. And so when the fucking tentacle shit starts coming out of the closet door, and then the closet rips open, and it's like this portal to the other side like that. But when that starts happening, there's something in there, and it's big and it's bad, and just like, and every time there was a closet noise or something, I'd be in bed because my bed was directly across from my closet.
Of course.
As it should be. And I would look at those doors and be like, and that scene would just play over my because it starts so quietly.
Yeah.
It's not extreme. It's not an explosion. It's just like something's happening and it's getting worse by the second. And I would always imagine, like, it was such a slow burn. And being a child, I think I saw this when I was like 5 or 6. I was still living in California at the time, and that moment, I'm like 5 years old or 6 years old, and it still haunts me to this day. I still remember that. So, which is why, as an adult in my house that I own here in Texas, the closet in my master bedroom was the same thing. Had those two sides. I took those.
I ripped the fucking doors.
I took them off. So now I open I don't see those doors. I just see the inside of my closet and all my clothes. I'm like, oh, there we go. We're good to go. I don't need to wake up, see those doors, and be like, what? What's that? No.
No, that's why, like, I keep my closet door closed, and me and my girlfriend were sitting there just hanging out in the bedroom, and something I had stacked fell. Like, no one's been in the closet or anything, but all of a sudden I hear like this crashing noise, and I look over at the closet, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yes, I get to go to the other side.
Like, I did the whole, like, slowly open the closet door. I'm kind of like, and it's just like, oh, okay, it was just some junk that fell.
Dang it.
But I was like, to this day.
But why did it fall?
Yeah.
Is the question.
We don't ask those
I'm
questions.
overcoming one question at a time.
Become stronger. Okay?
Such a great film, so many great fucking moments. And,
it is,
and even today, 2020, and this film came out in 82. So 38 years, and the film ages fantastically. The wardrobes are a bit outdated, but it doesn't matter. None of that matters. You can still see this happening today, and you don't need all the flash and pomp and unfortunately, you don't need all the CGI stuff to make it happen. I think I'll be 70 years old and still enjoying this movie as much as I enjoyed it when I first saw it. So,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
that brings
absolutely.
me to a question for the audience. We've been talking about all these scenes. What is the most terrifying moment in that movie, in your opinion? Maybe we left something out. I think we covered a lot of like the real big scenes. But yeah, let us know. Email us weekinhorror@gmail.com. Let us know what the most terrifying moment, and do they still affect you to this day? You don't have to be shy, because clearly, like I just told you, I still check under my bed for monster. So yeah, let us know. All right, JL, let's move a little bit into the future here and mess around with some genomes.
Yes, another movie with doctors in it. We have doctors all over the place. This is an excellent episode. It wasn't my intention, but Alex, you pointed out that this episode does see the supernatural hitting science.
Yeah.
And like every single one of the movies that we have, there's always a scientific aspect and a supernatural aspect. But in this particular one, released June 4th, 2010, we have the monster movie Splice. So, directed by Vincenzo Natali and written by Natali, Antoinette Terry Bryant, and Doug Taylor. And starring Adrian Brody, Sarah Pauly, and I swear to God I'm going to mess up her name because she is French, Delphine Chenet.
Chenois.
I don't think it's Chenois. I think it's Chenet or Chenake. But anyway, I apologize. I apologize to the actress if I messed up her name.
It's probably like Rue or something.
I probably wrecked it. I don't know. I have no idea. French is not just like my 27th language. But and this creepy little sci-fi horror film sees two doctors working on experimental genetic engineering, and in their attempts to create a genetic specimen for commercial use, a genetic an animal for commercial use, they wind up kind of going rogue and creating a hybrid human. And as the human gestates, as it is born from its synthetic womb, it comes out, and as any time you're mixing humans and other animals or other creatures, the results can obviously be terrifying. And as what they call they name her Dren.
Yeah, I think it's
Dren.
Dren.
Yeah, Dren.
Yeah, and as they name her Dren, as she matures, which she does quite rapidly, things start going insane as she starts coming into her own. So a wild foray into the horrors of genetic experimentation and science gone rogue.
Can we just touch on one thing that made me super uncomfortable watching this movie for the first time this week?
There was only one thing that made you uncomfortable.
The amount of sexual innuendos that they just did not try to hide through the whole. Those things look like dicks. Those little blobs. No, nobody else saw the dicks. Okay, I got that.
Natalie did not shy away from the concept that no matter what humans do, whatever humans create, and not to be crass, but I'm about to be very crass. But no matter what humans create, there will be someone out there who will find a way to fuck it.
Yep.
It's true, man.
And what is it? What's the rule of Alex? What's the rule of the internet? Rule 34.
Is it 34? If it exists, there's porn about it.
Exactly.
I remember that one. Okay, but for serious though, I wanted to note something because I was just watching this yesterday, and we've kind of touched on this aspect of filmmaking, and I don't want to get lost in it through while we're talking about this. But something I noticed about this movie was the color the whole time, because like I looked away from the screen afterwards, and I was like, wow, that was a lot of black and blue. Was like the whole movie was just black and blue, and the whole time all I could see was just blue. So I don't know if that was supposed to be like lean on like the genetic-y science lab type feel, but that was something I noticed I wanted to discuss.
Yeah, probably could have helped add towards kind of the sci-fi element. 'Cause a lot of sci-fi movies have like kind of a blue tint to it.
I've seen in green, yellow, and in that area of the primary color spectrum, and then green to blue, and then what generally are sci-fi colors, but blue predominantly I think was utilized for the emotional aspect, the emotional connection of Clive and Elsa, and their attachment to Dren. And then the black saying, kind of like the ill-fatedness of this journey that they're about to take.
They were fucked from the start.
They were fucked from the start, yes. In more ways than one.
These two cocky-ass lab rats that...
With the
fucked themselves from the start.
penis head, baby. Yeah, it's creepy.
The fucking penis head thing. I like saw that and I was like, they're just dicks. And then they start fighting each other. And I'm like, wow, they're being dicks to the dicks. Like, what the fuck is going on here? I liked this movie. I thought it was a good movie. The concept was great, but there was so much fucking... There's so much fucking. I guess I can just put a period there. Like,
yeah,
that
was exactly like, it's like, okay, all right. They go, they make
sex.
something, Victor Frankenstein. Wait, what?
Yeah. What?
And then you get, I don't know. It was just the whole thing was like, you watched this thing grow up from what it grew up from. Like, it was this blob. You've seen the fucking stinger on this thing. All these things like, okay, you watched these things like try to murder each other, and then you want to fuck it? Like, what? Come on,
Didn't
man.
it morph at some point into...
And then he's all like, blames it on like, oh, it must have your DNA in it because I'm so attracted to it.
Yeah.
Like, what?
I don't think it works that way.
I don't know. Did it morph at some point into a male? I can't.
It turns into a male towards the end after they kill it.
But because what's her name? Prego was with it. I'm spoiling. I am spoiling.
Yes, it's forcefully.
Nobody's seen this. They're screwed because because the best parts are the weirdest ones, like at the end.
Listen, we let listeners know before the show what's on the episode, so if they watch it, they know. Spoiler alerts.
It was wild. Despite the spectacle of what is obviously the Adrian Brody being appropriately creepy throughout the justifications his character comes up with, Sarah Polley also, I love Sarah Polley. I've loved her since Avonlea, and I just adore her and everything she does. And she, Dawn of the Dead, she was fantastic. But everybody was just on point. I think the primary note for the actors was just the creepiest version of these doctors you could possibly come up with, because everything they do to try and justify their ethics violations, it's like, oh yeah, for the greater good, or like this is like, no, it's the ego and the shit that's behind everything they're doing. But I like the Frankenstein reference that Eugene brought up, but of course, I love the concept of ethics as a horror medium, just crossing the line into uncharted territory. It always makes for excellent storytelling and excellent horror.
Yeah, horror finds its way. It started originally coming about through a actual like criticism of what was going on, because at the earliest works, you couldn't write bad things about nobility. Like that was just like no, bad things happen to you. But you could write a story about a fictional fictional character who was nobility, and they can have a lot of similarities, and that was okay. That's where you get some of the really early works like Dracula and Frankenstein and stuff like that. And so as the horror genre has gone through, it has always pushed the boundaries of ethics, because it's what if, especially with sci-fi horror, as technology increases, you get the just because you can, should you? Yeah, you can create, because that was the whole basis of Frankenstein. If you create life, you are responsible for what happens to it.
Oof, as a parent, that hit me right in the feels.
And when
it hit Adrian Brody in the feels too.
It hit him all over the place.
But
and everyone got quiet.
I was just replaying every fucking weird ass scene in that movie in my head. Sorry.
But you were responsible for that life, and you're responsible for everything that it does, including killing other people. And obviously, with a lot of sci-fi horror, it always pushes like to the extreme. Obviously, something bad happened, but it explores the what if. If you create artificial intelligence, what if it tries to kill everybody? Terminator. What if you find an organism in space? What should you do? Should you bring it back? Should you not? You get the movie like Life. You always horror movies always bring up those ethics questions. Especially with sci-fi. If we are able to do this, what are some of the consequences? And a lot of times, you get the consequences in the movie.
Every time. Sorry, you were naming these movies, and I was like, what about drones, small soldiers?
It's exactly what if your action figures come to life.
You used a good line, which I thought was funny, and this is totally off topic, but maybe not. But my dog, when he's licking himself, I'll be like, hey, bud, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I use it all the time. But it's true. And, you're talking about this ethics thing, and it's so... I've been close in a relationship with somebody who has bared a child for a gay couple. And obviously they can't have a kid, so they wanted to use a surrogate. And these people happen to be very wealthy, and they use, I don't know if anybody has heard, I think it's called CRISPR.
Yes.
So they used the CRISPR program to genetically modify the embryo, and chose the gender, the eye color, all sorts of stuff, weeded out stuff that they didn't want and put in things that they did want, which was a huge ethical, dilemma in this person's decision. And we talked about it a lot, because you never know. This is so new, but it's not like this movie came out and it was 10 years ago, and it wasn't that big of a deal. And then you get these genetically modified humans, and these people, we've only been doing it for a short amount of time, so we don't know what the repercussions of genetically modifying something. You're taking something that's supposed to occur naturally and deciding the outcome of it. Well, you never know. You go to modify one of those genomes or sequence in the DNA, and you don't know if that's going to cause major issues down the road. And it's not, the human body is so resilient, but when you mess with it, you can really mess stuff up on that. And so, who knows, 20 years down the road, that one sequence that you triggered or took out, who knows if that doesn't mutate or cause issues later on. Your arm works fine one day, all of a sudden it falls off because, oh, we tweaked this thing, but we didn't look at what was going to happen in the end. So, like, this movie coming out 10 years ago even was still pretty irrelevant to what we're doing today with genetic sequencing and gene splicing and all sorts of just unbelievable. Some people call it technological advancement, but it's just, there's a huge line between playing God and, I hate using that because it brings religion into it. I mean, playing God by choosing somebody's outcome. Human life still don't understand why we work. Like, we shouldn't be here. There's, as far as we can tell, we're the only life forms like us in our observable, I guess you could say, solar system, because we really can't get to planets outside of it. But the fact that you could go in and do that doesn't mean, like you said, that you should. But how far do we push it, for science to find out what we can do? It's a dilemma. You get stuck in this middle moral ground where it's incredible. What they can do is incredible. It's super cool that they can do it. But what are going to be the long-term repercussions of this? And is it going to cause issues for the human race being able to choose, as it becomes more readily available, choose the way that our race is built? We could go in and take out all diseases. We can go in and do all this and create this perfect human race. But should we? So it comes down to this movie before its time. Granted, you go through the movie and watch, and they're just spouting just nonsense. They'll say stuff like, "Oh, did you check the T34Z9?" And it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. But what they didn't know was this was actually going to become a huge thing. You never know. You could mess around with something. It could turn out, seem like it's fine, and then 20 years down the road, oh my God, this person now produces toxic gas when they sweat.
So
No,
I seem to recall another movie that kind of did this. What was the name of it? It was about a park, and there were dinosaurs.
Wait. No, I lost it.
Don't sue us, John Williams.
Well, that's like we've cloned sheep. And then on top of it, they're like, we can clone woolly mammoths. Like, you probably shouldn't do that.
That's what makes it, as far as sci-fi goes, and the areas of science that we can get to. Yes, there are
While he was talking, I was thinking, what percentage of human do they need to be before we can kill them without having legal repercussions? Like, it made me think, like, what percentage? Because, I mean, like 20% human, and you can still kill them? Are they like animal more? Like, what is that?
That has actually been a huge debate because with, say, for example, of cloning, if somebody is cloned, does the clone have rights? And this is actually something that the government has argued about. And you get movies like The Island, which talks about
the island of Dr. Moreau.
The island of Dr. Moreau,
because his hybrids, his human animal hybrids, if they didn't get the drugs they needed, they reverted into more animal states, both physiologically and behaviorally. So
Animals.
But as long as they got the drugs, they would look human. But if they came off of it, where is that dividing line?
And that's definitely one of the ethics questions. And going back to what Alex said, one of my favorite sci-fi movies is Gattaca, where they go into...
That's a good one.
Oh yeah, we can eliminate all these diseases. We can make sure you have perfect eyesight and any kind of genetic problems. We can have that, and you start seeing the society effect on it because you have like the free births, the people who are born naturally, and then you have the people who are basically genetically engineered, and it has the argument of who's better. Yes,
it creates the caste system.
It does create the caste system because
that's what we need right now in the world.
Yeah, we're all born the same way, and we still can't get along. The last thing we need is another way to divide us.
Well, see, and that's what I love. I love it as a storytelling feature, especially in sci-fi, because yes, there are ethical lines. Do we cross them? Do we not cross them? What can we do? But like they bring up that's what I loved about Splice so much, is because they bring up the very real point is creating Dren, a human-animal hybrid, or actually a human hybrid with another hybrid animal. So they basically created a hybrid animal, and then they hybridized that with a human being, and basically with Elsa. Elsa used her own DNA to do it. So they create this hybrid of a hybrid, and the scientific breakthroughs that could come from doing that, from a biological standpoint or a physiological standpoint, could be tremendous. The knowledge and the information we could gain from it, as far as what we could do with our immune system, or what we could do with the physicality of the human body, and the advancements that could come with it, are tremendous. It's a whole new frontier of scientific discovery. But what is lost in the interim is that, because this is a life that you're working with, it's sentient, it knows what it is. Is it, you go into the rights aspect of it like that, but. And I always play devil's advocate in this argument but if you have the ability to cure the things that you could cure, like, because Alex, you mentioned CRISPR, which is a very real thing nowadays, and is slowly but surely ramping up into an actual thing. Because right now, I believe that they can only do minor traits. They can, eye color, gender, various things like that, just small details, but not extreme things like musculature or intelligence or reduced addiction, stuff like that. We can't go to that, but we're getting there. And so, but if you have the opportunity, and you could eliminate things like congenital blindness or congenital deafness or genetic, or the whole myriad of genetic diseases that afflict the human race, or you maybe get a little bit touchier, Down syndrome, dwarfism, okay? All these things that you can eliminate you don't want to say for the betterment of the human race, but you don't want people to, while people learn to live with it, and individuals who have these, I don't want to call them afflictions, but these genetic, they are genetic afflictions, unfortunately, but the people who, they don't suffer, they're not in pain. They can live with what they have. So they're no different than any one of us. They're just built differently. But there are things that they can't do. There's limitations to that. If we can eliminate that for the betterment of the human species.
Yeah.
Do we have an ethical, I would say, prerogative to do that? From a species standpoint, not from the individual standpoint. What is more important? The actual species of the creature, the actual human species, or the individual?
Unfortunately, in the way that we've built our lives and the technology we've produced to, like you say, for the betterment of humans, has turned humans into the most selfish creatures in the world. And it wouldn't come down. My issue with it is, I don't think it would come down to, for the species. It would definitely be a selfish situation, so that you could have the best child and they'd grow up perfect and they'd make you look better. And by the time the people that were being selfish and making these perfect children are old and dead, then you've got this whole race of people that aren't, it's not that they're not natural born, but they're all going to be the same. And then it just comes down to, it could revert, it could go one way or another. It could turn into, like you said, like a caste system where it's all about these people are better than everybody else, or it could revert down to just surviving as a species, and we could go backwards easily. The whole thing, there's so many documentaries on it, and it just, there's so many ethical issues in the whole situation that it's like, you might as well just stop. Just stop where you're head. Keep doing your research if you want to maybe find a way to like weed out like how to kill cancer, or weed out like Alzheimer's, these just debilitating diseases that we can get rid of. Stop focusing on making the perfect human as a baby, but work on the humans that are here now. and maybe just kind of take a step back, because it could go one way or another very, very, very quickly. Like you said, CRISPR isn't like super advanced. They can only do like eye color and like skin tone and all sorts of stuff, but they can actually, there are a few major hereditary things that they can weed out. And I've been on the front end of this thing and just seeing like what they can do with that. It's concerning. It's cool. I love science, but it's also very concerning that they've advanced this far this fast.
Yeah.
And it could be interesting on how that starts affecting other industries, because imagine everybody's born with perfect eyesight.
Glasses.
So what about
contacts,
the
optometrists.
optical industry? Yeah, obviously somebody gets
Hair
something stuck in
loss.
your eye or something like that. You get that taken care of. But the glasses, that's
But think of it down to like body odor, like tooth diseases. You can weed all that out. You lose your entire toothpaste, deodorant section. Those are major corporations shutting down. So that's a good point.
We see a fundamental alteration of how we live our lives, and you never know. It could turn into your epic, crazy genetic horror dystopia where genetically engineered lion people are eating us, or we get like Khan Noonien Singh from Star Trek II, taking over the planet, or it can wind up being a society like in Mr. Nobody, where they've figured out telomerization, and now everybody just lives forever.
Are you just trying to like set the preface for June 2020's 2020 apocalypse bingo? That's what it sounded
But
like.
it could go either way. But that's why I love it as a horror subject, because we can always go to the dark side. We can always see the terrible things that will happen, and it plays on our fears of the unknown. Especially Splice did, because it plays on the unknown of being a parent. Now, I myself am not a parent. Eugene, sorry, Alex, I know you are a parent. Cassie,
No, I
do you
don't
have
have
kids?
any kids.
Okay, but
You
I
said
think
you teach. You definitely have kids.
and of course there is an unknown aspect. There's an unknown variable that comes in with becoming a parent, and I can understand that, and I can empathize with that. In that you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what the future holds, you don't know. This is this unknown variable that you've chosen to bring into the world, and that plays very much in Splice, because these two who have created this life form are unexpectedly parents, but they're dissociated from that. So we can see the dysfunction already from the very, very beginning. And now this can wind off into the dark side. Genetic horror is one of my absolute favorites, and there's so many good ones. That reminds me, I want to ask the audience, what is your favorite genetic horror film? Where playing around with genetics, playing around with the human genome has led to atrocious circumstances, or maybe even good circumstances. Who knows? But generally it winds up bad. It either goes Island of Dr. Moreau or it goes, Brave New World. So what is your favorite genetic horror film? Let us know. weekinhorror@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you think. We'll read your comments off in the next episode.
Repo, the genetic opera.
See, that's a good one. If it gives everybody the sudden ability to sing, then I'm cool with that.
Once more feeling.
There wasn't a soul in that movie that couldn't say that could not, or that could not carry a tune. So go ahead.
I'd be out of job. I prefer that not happen.
See, that was you were talking about perfect people would put us out of a job. And that was wild, because there's a movie coming out, thanks to technology, that's bringing James Dean back.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
What? Huh?
Yes. Thanks to the technology that we have gotten to the point today that we are able to bring dead actors back.
Come on, give the new ones a chance.
Exactly. So, and then given what they can do with de-aging, given what they can do with voices, with voice modulation, our editing software has gotten so powerful that
speak?
we can now bring dead actors back from the grave at any age we want them to be, and cast them and put them in a movie and have them do a movie. So we can have movies with, and then I think one that struck me was Beowulf, when Beowulf came out, because the entire film was 100% motion capture, CGI. And I love the film. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I watch. It's one of my sleepy time.
So what's
movies.
the ethics behind that, though? I mean, you're bringing dead people back to life, and they have no say so what you do with them. There's there could be some kind of ethics messed upness about that too.
Marilyn Monroe and Sharknado.
Yeah, right. It's like I didn't choose that.
but can be done. I mean, we saw it, when we see the advent of what technology could do, we see things like in Beowulf, where obviously Ray Winstone, a phenomenal actor, does not look like Beowulf in real life, but the movie can make him look like that. Then we see things like in X-Men 3, where we see the de-aging of Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart. Yeah, at the time, it wasn't great technology, and they looked kind of plastic, just for the new technology, but it's gotten very, very good. It's just like any other technology, every single year it's going to jump exponentially. And now we have deep fakes across the internet that are at first you could tell them they were a little staticky, you could tell they were fake, but now they're almost indistinguishable from real video. So, and we saw the beginning of that with, say, Terminator Salvation, because obviously that wasn't Arnold, who was the T-800 in that. That was another bodybuilder who has the same body shape, who's from Austria, and then they slapped Arnie's face on that. But then, of course, Grand Moff Tarkin, when they brought Grand Moff Tarkin back for Episode 7. Because that was a fully CG rendered Peter Cushing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to get better and better from there. So, who knows where it's going to go.
Wait, wasn't that in Rogue One?
Was that in Rogue? Oh, that wasn't. Was that Rogue One? That was
Rogue One.
Yeah, that was not my bad. Because 7, he was already dead. So they did the prequel in between. Mm-hmm. But yes, when they brought Grand Moff Tarkin back, when they brought Peter Cushing back for Rogue One, there were moments I was like, oh, that looks like, oh shit, that looks really fucking real. That's like a really good Peter Cushing. So, who knows?
That's a great Peter Cushing you got there.
Princess Leia could come back to life.
What was that?
I can't. That was pretty awesome. So,
oh shit! I saw the Andy Samberg's movie, fucking rock pop star, something like that.
Oh,
it was Adam Levine hologram. So expensive. Sorry, that just popped in my head. That was random. We got one more movie on the docket. This is a special one. Eugene, what do we got?
So this is one of my personal favorites. I do love this movie. It came out June 6, 1976. And we're...
Ooh, 666?
Huh?
666.
666. Yes. Oh, yeah.
What a coincidence. Do you think they meant that?
What a coincidence.
Oh, holy shit. And all four movies have creepy kids.
Yep, I was about to say something about that.
Oh, yeah. So we got science and creepy kids this week.
It's all like a hive mind thing. They all have the same fucking idea at the same time.
You mean,
it's almost like they work in the same industry close to each other.
You mean a hive mind? Something like, Children of the Corn?
Ooh. He who walks behind the rose.
But released June 6, 1976, we have The Omen. Which Damien is just... But directed by Richard Donner and starring Gregory Peck, Lee Rimerick, and David Warner. And
2 for 2.
And we have basically an American diplomat, and they adopt Damien when his wife delivers a stillborn, and people start dying more and more in supernatural and strange ways, being around Damien, who turns out to be possibly the Antichrist.
It's all for you, Damien.
It's all for you.
So how old was that kid when he shot? Was the Damien character when he shot that? Do you know?
How old was he?
I mean, I have no idea. Could have been.
That was
Harvey
9. Spencer Stevens.
He looked young. Looked really young.
He was 6.
Oh, geez,
yeah.
really?
There was that one scene where he was sitting in the car and he starts shaking. I thought I was like, is that for real? Are they? I mean, is he really doing that? Because it was really good. Because he's I was impressed.
Oh, that final moment when Gregory Peck's got him, and he's trying to force himself because he knows what he has to do, and he's trying to force himself before the cops bust in, and just that interaction between him, because the kid is like, "This is my dad. What are you doing?" And the kid fighting back and doing his best. He's 6 years old. That got me. I was like, "Fuck, dude, it was way too intense."
Yeah.
It was extremely well casted. Because that kid is, man, that kid was creepy. That it was
super creepy. You're talking about creepy kids. See, I was really excited about this one because the creepy kid aspect, and like you said, I'm a father. I've got one child of my own and 2 stepchildren, and kids are just inherently creepy. And whether or not they're trying to be, sometimes it's like they're trying to like hide something they're doing from you, and it can come off as real creepy. But when my daughter was like, I want to say like 2 or 3, it was right after she could like talk full sentences. I was laying her down to sleep one night, and I'm talking to her, and we're talking, and all of a sudden her gaze kind of just, falls behind me. I can tell she's looking over my shoulder. And I watch her eyes follow the corner of the room to the ceiling, and then up above the ceiling, straight above us. And as soon as it started, like, I started getting the chills because I was like, what the fuck is she looking at? I didn't want to turn around or anything. And so I just looked her straight in her face. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you looking at? And she's like, it's my new friend. And I was like, good night. And I left the room because she followed something from the corner of her eye up. It was so slow and so creepy. And like, okay, no matter what you believe, whether you believe in supernatural or, children being able to connect to the supernatural more than adults, just the way that she followed the corner of the room to the ceiling and then directly above me was just absolutely the creepiest shit. Ghosts out of it. It was just so creepy. Like, and you just get this creepy kid aspect of the whole film, and just being around kids all the time. It's just like, man, yeah, they can be kind of creepy. They say stuff that worries you. It's like, maybe there is something in the closet. It's like, yeah, Daddy, what were you doing standing in my doorway at, middle of the night? It's like, I wasn't even home last night. And it's like,
kids.
So wild. Yeah. And I loved how the film capitalized on in my mind, it capitalized on The Exorcist because The Exorcist came out only 3 years previously.
3 years prior.
Yeah, and obviously, Linda Blair as Reagan in that, just a phenomenal, terrifying performance. Arguably one of the greatest horror films ever made. And then this one comes along and plays further. I was like, that one was just, was it a demon? It was Pazuzu, but was it the devil? We're not really sure. And then this one, obviously, going even further into that, is that it's not really a possession movie, but it's still dealing in those same terms. In that this child being the center of so much carnage and just wildness, they kind of took that and ran with it. And I think they actually did. It's hard to say which one is better because both of them are so good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
They really are. And like you said, it capitalizes on The Exorcist, and you get into this point now where, and it's, you say 3 years, but like, not everybody went and saw The Exorcist in theaters, and there's finally enough time for everybody to kind of grasp the concept of this, I guess, almost religious horror, but like, you're dealing with demons and the devil, and then you take something so bold as to like put an actual child. The Exorcist, it was a kid, but this was like a child, and you could connect with that child. And they really pulled, like you said, The Exorcist was a great film, but it was a pioneer in its time. And The Omen came along and kind of refined some points. Hey, we should look into this part of it. Maybe not make it so extreme into possession, but like, what's in this kid? Is there something in this kid? Is this kid the something? You're questioning the whole movie. You're like, okay, what is it? It's terrifying.
It really is, because you'll see, and I've talked about it before on here, where in 1969 you had the huge split in the horror genre, where you have Night of the Living Dead and that kind of jumpstart the zombie genre, the low budget horror, which eventually led to slasher movies, and so you have these indie slasher films that are coming out at the time, And a lot of people focus on them because you just same time around Halloween came out, you had Texas Chainsaw Massacre already come out at this point, and it was like, okay, well, what are the studios doing in horror films? And the studios, instead of doing the slasher, went towards the supernatural, because Rosemary's Baby, which came out the same year as Night of the Living Dead, was a huge success, and which led to The Exorcist, which led to The Omen, which led to Poltergeist that came out. And so this is what this was like produced by 20th Century Fox. This was not a low little indie movie with like John Carpenter or something like that. This was a big budget at the time for a movie. So it's nice to jump on this side also. This is what studios were doing at the time, and kids happen to kind of remain a common aspect of that.
Can't mess around with kids. You say the budget thing. I'm glad you brought up the budget thing. I think this movie had a budget of like $2.8 million.
Yep.
And it made something along the lines of I want to say like almost 69 million? 60 something million dollars. I'm sorry, just about $61 million on a budget of $2.8 million. And back then, like that, it wasn't that long ago, but like inflation now, $60 million would be worth closer to like 90 million bucks. That's insane. And I'm going to brag for a second because I've never done this, but I had to edit a Wikipedia page today. The Omen, I was looking up some facts on there, and this film was the 6th highest grossing movie of 1976. Wow. And they had on the Wikipedia page that it was the 5th. But you're talking the same year that like Rocky came out.
Yeah.
And so obviously like Rocky was number 1 that year. A Star is Born, King Kong, Silver Streak, and All the President's Men were before it. But the 6, it makes the top 10 of the highest grossing movie.
That's a huge
which is
success.
Insane. And I mean, on a budget of $2.8 million, that blew my mind. The whole $2.8 million and churning out 60 million bucks, like, yeah.
Well, one thing we can't move along without talking about, obviously, is the curse of the Omen, because it's wildly known. It's a legendary in Hollywood. The curse that was the supposed curse that was behind this film. So, the first and foremost thing is that there was a rumor around Hollywood that the devil itself was trying to stop this movie from being made, and that came.
You're doing it wrong.
That came about because of some really insane incidents that took place, and I don't know how many of our listeners are familiar with some of these events, but there was a bunch of crazy stuff. Like one of the first major things that happened was Gregory Peck, the lead actor in the film, and a legendary actor himself, was supposed to be on a plane to go to shoot, to fly to the film location, and his plane was struck by lightning. And in a second, and then as was David Seltzer's plane was struck by lightning 2 days later. And another strange one was that Peck actually had to cancel a flight shortly before takeoff, so he actually had to cancel a plane ride that he was supposed to be on, and for unknown reasons, the plane crashed.
Wow.
Shortly after takeoff.
I'll take the train.
And everybody on board that plane died, and the plane crashed into a nearby vehicle.
Wow.
That vehicle contained the pilot's entire family.
What?
No way.
Wow.
Yes. And
Fake news. No way.
And then continuing on from there, the set of it was the filming sets were subject to bombings, because there was IRA stuff going on at the time, and then equipment would go crazy on set, and everyone started believing the thing was cursed, and then one of their animal handlers was mauled by the Rottweilers that were used on set.
See, that's not even like supernatural stuff either. It's not like, oh, some stuff on the set moved around. That was like an outside force being like, what? Stop. I'm trying to tell you in the most obvious ways to stop.
Well, one of the craziest events that took place, it was after the film had rolled. And I want to make sure I get this exactly right. God, there were so many on this one. and so many people almost lost their lives.
But let's do it anyways. That's that human nature shit we're talking about.
Yeah, that
Clearly.
they're gonna persevere through the curse. Maybe somebody's trying to tell you something.
Hey, we shouldn't be doing this, but we're gonna do it anyways because we want to, and yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
That's where we're at. That's where we're at as a world right now. Still.
But let me see. So, of all this was considered one of the worst, because the Poltergeist trilogy also was considered cursed as well. But this was the craziest one. So, was the death of visual effects supervisor John Richardson, Richardson's assistant. He was on the set of A Bridge Too Far. So, the special effects supervisor John Richardson, his assistant, was on the set of A Bridge Too Far 1 year later, exactly 1 year later, and then while driving to the set, there was a car accident that everyone was injured in, and I believe Richardson was in that car with his assistant, and his assistant was killed and was decapitated in the car accident by a sheet of glass, the same as David Warner's character in the movie. And when the car came, and when the car crashed, when Richardson came to in the collision, after the collision, Richardson was knocked unconscious. When he woke up, his assistant was dead. His assistant had been decapitated, and he looked up out of the wreckage and saw a road sign, and the road sign was Omen, 66.6 kilometers away.
What?
Fuck that. Like, maybe just stop.
Wow.
That's insane. That's so. Oh my god.
Oh, and yeah, there was also a tiger handler. The animal handlers were attacked by the Rottweilers instead, but there was a tiger handler who was mauled to death 2 weeks after filming began when he was pulled headfirst into a lion's cage and was eaten alive.
I'm speechless. Like, I did not realize there were so many.
Yeah, just all kinds of crazy shit took place on this one. So, and of course, it's not the only hotel. The Exorcist was also considered to be cursed.
That was a lightning strike to the cross, right?
Yes, that was the epic one. The lightning strike took out the 400-year-old cross off a church across the street. Passion of the Christ was considered cursed. The Superman films. Oh, there's so much. I actually wrote an article on 7 unexplainable film curses back when I was doing work for Cinelinks.com. So that was a fun one to look into.
And then they remade The Omen. Like,
yeah,
there was multiple movies, and then they had a remake on June 6, 2006. And it's like, are you sure you want to do this?
Whatever makes money. Fate. It's like, yep, it's going to make money.
Some of you may die. Yeah, I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
That's a sacrifice I'm willing to take.
Oh, wild. But bring it, like, talking about crazy like this. We can chalk it up to circumstance. We can chalk it up to coincidence. But there's so much. I mean, it's eerie. You know, you can't deny it. I myself don't believe that there's anything more to it. I honestly think that it can be chalked up to coincidence, or it can be chalked up to the circumstance of events. The roadside crash and the decapitation of the assistant outside the road sign for Oman and 66.6 kilometers away, that's a little creepy to me. That I can't deny that's a bit creepy.
Yeah, it's too much.
There's a lot on that one.
Yeah,
it really is. But this is actually something that I'd like to ask the audience. What are your thoughts about the curse? Do you think these sets were cursed? Or is it just strange coincidences kind of thing? Definitely let us know. Do you think these sets were cursed?
Yeah.
So wild. Yeah, there's another film that's actually cursed. It's not a horror film, but there's a book called The Confederacy of Dunces, which is an absolutely hysterical book. I read it on a plane flight one time. But it's the protagonist. I don't know if anybody else is here has read it. Cassie, have you read it?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. So, but anyway, A Confederacy of Dunces. It's a very, very funny book. The protagonist of it is a very, very fat man, like huge. He's a huge dude. So because the book was so good, obviously Hollywood wanted to make it into a movie, but every single leading man that's been attached to this film has died shortly after being attached to this film.
How many did they go through before people stopped?
John
showing
Belushi, John Candy, Chris Farley, Harris Milstead, and there were a number of other smaller actors, but those are the biggest names that were attached to it. So
Crazy.
Nope.
Yeah.
Man.
Nope. Not worth it.
So yes, I don't think that movie will ever see the light of day. But film curses are always so cool. The Exorcist one is pretty neat. I highly recommend any of our listeners look into that one because that one's pretty damn wild.
There's definitely a lot of crazy stuff that happened on that.
That's what I heard. I've heard about that one. Yeah, it's popular.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes you.
So.
No, it makes you.
Go
makes
ahead.
you think, like when you hear about, because people want to really be scared. They want to really be creeped out. Like horror fans, like I like being scared. Like my fiance will scare me, and I get mad at him, pretend I'm mad, but I like being scared. I don't mind it. But you think about that brings a realness to the film. Like, do you think there are copycat filmmakers out there who this is a total conspiracy theory type thing? It's like there could be copycats out there that want to create that craziness just to have that reality to their film, and that could be like a tragic when we find out one day that people actually did this stuff on purpose just to create a money hub for their film because it's got that reality aspect to it. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, look at our world. I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah.
People are very fucked up.
Oh, if you look at the marketing campaign for Blair Witch, that's what it was. It was based off of, this is true, this really happened. And instead of having the cast do all interviews and do a promotion thing, they paid the cast members to basically disappear.
Yeah.
And that way they could market it. Yeah, this really happened. This is real footage. And
do you remember that when you looked them up on the internet too? Like after the movie came out, when you looked them up, like it just showed like their involvement in the movie, and they pretended like their deaths on film were like their real deaths.
That's crazy.
It was wild, and I know that those producers and that director put those three actors through hell in making that movie because apparently it was just nightmarish out there because they were undersupplied. They're out in the cold ass Massachusetts woods, and they never and they did all the filming themselves. Obviously, it was found footage, but everyone was around, but always at a distance, so they never saw anybody. But at night, they would come and they would fuck with them at night just to keep them awake and keep them from sleeping. So that the exhaustion and everything just played. That was a nightmarish set to be on. I can imagine.
Yeah, the end of your film career if you had one.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for my first movie.
And last.
Little did he know.
Still one of the highest. Was it one of the highest profited?
Arguably, it was either this one. There's some speculation, but it's arguably considered that Blair Witch Project was the highest grossing independent film ever made. I think it was on $60,000. It grossed $250 million worldwide.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And there's some arguing whether or not the first Paranormal Activity actually beat that, because you have to adjust for you have to adjust the dollars for inflation, and also there was marketing that went into it. So because the marketing budget for Blair Witch was so small, it was so simple, it was literally just text on a black screen.
Yeah, because Paranormal Activity was shot on a smaller budget, but it did have marketing behind it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see
Did
that.
those people that did Blair Witch, does anybody know if like they got money from on the back end or anything, or if they just signed releases to like?
They did. I remember reading about how they got paid out for the whole disappearing situation. There was definitely something there, like monetarily. I remember reading something about it not long after the whole thing was found out. But yeah, they were essentially bribed, from what I was reading.
So wild. I know that Heather Donahue did a little bit of work after Blair Witch. She did an episode of The Outer Limits, and I think she did a couple more horror movies, but I think that was pretty much the end.
Yeah, because it was when you have a movie that's like that groundbreaking. Usually, you'll have people who would try to copy it, and you had some found footage movies that came out, but with the way the Blair Witch was shot and filmed and everything like that, it wasn't something that really showcased people's abilities in terms of like cinematography wise, or Heather has a solid performance in the movie, but it's hard to see her doing other stuff and but Blair, I still like the movie.
Oh
yeah, it's great.
Well, we're going to go from short-lived careers to one of the longest careers of Reese, because we have a birthday today.
Yes, we do. This particular individual is, like you said, very, very established. Robert Englund. Fuck. I was like, don't say Englund. Robert Englund, born June 6, 1947. See, I fucked it up this time. 1947, turning 72 this year. And just absolutely still rocking everything.
Dude, I share a birthday with him. Not the date, of course, not 1947, thank God, but yeah.
Close friend of Mark Hamill. I hope not. I don't remember my birthday.
Obviously, everybody knows him as Freddy Krueger, but one thing I love to do is I've spent a lot of time in preparation for this show and finding things to put in our horror movie database for the films that we're going to talk about every week. I spend a lot of time on Amazon Prime and on YouTube looking for just any horror movies that I can. And there's a lot more on Amazon Prime than there are on Netflix or on any other site. But I always find just these just wacky, weird films that you never would have expected. And I came across a movie that came out in 1981 called Dead and Buried, which we'll be talking about soon, that's coming up here, and was shocked to see a very, very young, pre-Freddy Robert Englund in that, in a very, very small supporting role. I think he had like five or six lines the entire movie. Mostly, it was just that he has that wicked grin that just kind of like, with the way his face is shaped, but the way he grins at people is just unsettling, just kind of weird, and especially when he does it with no makeup on. Is when he's outside the Freddy costume, but he was so young, full head of hair, and just he just had that youthful kind of creepiness to him. And I'd recommend anybody go and check out his early movies, stuff like Buster and Billy, St. Ives, Eaten Alive. He was in A Star Is Born in '76.
Yeah.
Which we were just talking about that being on the top 10. I think that was like the third highest grossing movie in '76.
Yeah. So he was all around. Just you have to catch him. It's kind of like catching Jack Black in Demolition Man. What am I blowing minds? You guys didn't know that?
That's one of my guilty pleasure movies. I love that movie.
Demolition Man's fantastic, but yes, Jack Black was in it for a brief moment, and you get the same thing with Robert Englund. You'll pop as holy shit, that's Robert Englund. Checking your finger like this. And another thing that caught me, I just gotta throw it in there because I love the man to death. Glenn Morshower was in Dead and Buried too, which kind of blew my mind because he was so fucking young. And Cassie, I don't know if you know Glenn.
I've been in a film with him. Yeah, I know him very well. Yeah.
Yes, and I caught him in this, and it just I don't know if you've seen Dead and Buried, but if you just imagine, it's Glenn Morshower. His face has not changed, but this full head of red hair, just like poofy red hair, and because he looked like a high school senior because he's wearing a varsity jacket, and I was like, holy shit, super young Glenn Morshower. But it's so cool to see, especially an actor who's been around as long as Robert Englund, to go back and see him in their old stuff. But of course, we all know the man as Freddy Krueger.
He was Englund was one of the three actors that have portrayed a horror character 8 consecutive times, alongside Pinhead and Jigsaw, actually, Tobin Bell and Doug Bradley, which was a cool little fun fact. I was counting it out, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, definitely 8 times. It's super cool that he's got that one piece really blew my mind. Just
That's
that
so
he was
slick.
like so established that he could be among the greats. Pinhead. I mean, I wouldn't call Jigsaw a great. I have very mixed feelings on that. But this guy, like, even in his like early life, he was friends with Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill slept on his couch while he auditioned for Skywalker.
Oh wow, I didn't know
Like,
that.
he's,
That is so cool.
yeah, and you know the Toby Hooper Eaten Alive that you were talking about. That was a huge movie. I loved that movie. It wasn't a huge movie, but it was a good movie. I loved that movie. And you were naming some of these lesser known movies, and I'm like, no, I've seen all these. I guess I've been around this crew and this cast, these people for a lot longer than I realized until I started looking into some of like the early stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an interesting way. It's an interesting thing to see because you see the movies that he was in, and he was in, like A Star Is Born and St. Ives and Sunburst, and there was, I think there was some darker stuff in there, but obviously he had A Nightmare on Elm Street, and you could see if you look at his career and just the way his career went, and then all of a sudden he did Nightmare on Elm Street, and then boom, his shit just shot off into the horror field and like never left. Because it's pretty much all I think that's like all he's ever done. And every time he shows up in a movie or shows up in like in a TV series, because I've seen him pop up here and there, and I think one of my favorites was he was in an episode of Bones, and you wouldn't expect it, but it was like, holy shit, Robert Englund's in an episode of Bones, and it was a creepy, like nightmare style episode, but it just happened to have it. So you can see how it has become his career being a part of this, and I want to give some special props to Wishmaster, because in Wishmaster, this is how you establish a horror icon: is you put other horror icons in there. And Wishmaster, in order to give that movie credit, we had to put Robert Englund, freaking Kane Hodder, and Tony Todd all in this movie, and have the Wishmaster kill them to give this dude cred. So it just goes to show just his power as a horror icon.
Yeah,
Well, I just read something that I just recently got back. This is gonna sound super off, but bear with me. I just recently got back into playing Call of Duty Black Ops because I've been thinking about the zombies maps, and so I was playing on those, and I was just reading that he actually plays a character on one of the new Black Ops zombie maps as himself.
Nice.
Like you can play him as himself in this. It's on the Call of the Dead map, which I actually just downloaded, so I'm like super excited to go play that now.
He's so cool, and I want to give a shout out. There was a movie that I caught recently that he was in. He wasn't the primary. Obviously, he's not often the primary actor. Usually, he takes a supporting role to kind of move the plot along in a certain direction. And I love that he puts everything, even in smaller roles, he puts everything he can into him. Just the mark of a really professional actor. But there was a movie I came across called Night World, which was really interesting. It was a pretty well done little horror film. Just not super expensive, just and more of a real creep fest. But he played his character in that was like the blind curator of this like old hotel building, and the hotel building is actually a portal to like another dimension called the Night World. And so but he was just phenomenal, and it was cool watching him play a blind guy. It was really neat. But obviously I love him in everything he does. He's still working. I think his next movie coming out is Abruptio, which comes out next year.
I believe so. And then he's already in talks with a movie called Harvest Moon.
Ooh.
So he's still working. I mean, definitely, he's keeping going, keep cranking it out, and it's Robert Englund. He's just awesome.
And well, unfortunately, he has retired from the role of Freddy Krueger. This comes a point when you just you age kind of catches up with you. But I do love the fact that he's still heavily involved in the future of the character, that they are coming to him, to the guy, to the actor who portrayed this iconic horror, character for since 82 all the way up to when did friggin' to 2003?
It was
and
84.
God, was it really? Yeah.
84 to 2003. And then he showed up as Freddy again in an episode of what the hell was that show?
Which one?
The Goldbergs. He showed up. There was an episode of The Goldbergs. He actually showed up in a dream sequence as Freddy Krueger, with the full makeup and everything. So it's pretty wild. But I'm glad to hear that he's still heavily involved and that his direction is respected in moving forward, because he wants to see another Nightmare on Elm Street film made. He wants to see someone else take over the role, but he's involved in it because I think he saw the ball get dropped in the Jackie Earl Haley remake, and he doesn't want that happening again. He doesn't want the franchise to just die. So I'm glad that he's still in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, a happy birthday to Robert Englund, one of the master of my nightmares.
Yep, happy birthday, Robert. Well, that closed out another episode of Week in Horror, and we hope you enjoyed the show. Once again, thank you, Cassie, for joining us tonight. Cassie, is there anything coming up that you'd like to plug for our audience?
I have a couple of films one just came out, Kill the Czar with James Franco, and then I have a little short film that I've done called The Four Stops coming out pretty soon. I play a hit woman in it, so that one was fun. And I also teach, so anybody want to take some lessons online, my lessons that's booming right now, so I'm caught up with just doing the film thing and trying to teach online and everything. And so it's been crazy. It's been a crazy year, but everybody knows that everything's going to get back to normal, so everybody's keep plugging away in their talents, and production on films and stuff are plugging away. And on top of that, I have a couple of people writing some scripts for a really creepy house that my dad owns, so I'm looking forward to seeing what people come up with that, because I want to be a part of that. It's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Do you have a website or social media people can get a hold of you at if they're interested in taking lessons?
You can look, the easiest thing to do is look up my website, www.CassieSheaWatson, Cassie, S-H-E-A, SheaWatson.com, and you can contact me there, and then I can give you information to my business website so you can see what all options you have, and we'll get you taken care of.
Awesome.
Super cool.
I like how she spelled her middle name out like that.
Nobody spells it right, like ever. Ever. My sisters spell it wrong, and they know me for as long as they've been alive, so.
That's
like
my
how
bad.
she drops-
I will remember. That was a very subtle reminder, and I will take that.
Very passive aggressive.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Cassie, for coming and joining us. Thank you so much to our listeners. As always, you can visit us at weekinhorror.net. You can check out what we've got going on there, any upcoming contests or any upcoming giveaways that we have. As always, we want your feedback, your comments, your questions. Shoot them on over to us at weekinhorror@gmail.com. We love to hear what you think. We love to hear your answers to our audience call to action. We love to hear what you think about the movies we talked about. If you really, 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 really love what we do here, you can support us. You can support us at www.patreon.com/weekinhorror. And those individuals that support us can get early access to our bloodbath debates, where we pit horror icons against each other to the death in a super nerd debate, and of course our After Dark sessions, which we will have here with Cassie shortly. You can check those out at patreon.com/weekinhorror. And because we know things are tight and times are uncertain, if you do want to support us, we do have a $1 tier, and that gets you in and it gets you a shout out on the show. So check that out. As always, follow us at facebook.com/weekinhorror and Twitter @weekinhorror. You can get our daily splatter, which is every day, a little bit of horror knowledge straight to your feed. Something to make you laugh, something to make you cringe. You never know what we're going to throw you. It's all there. Check it out, weekinhorror.net. As always, I'm JL.
I'm Eugene.
And I'm Alex.
And we'll see you next week. And always, stay scared.